I could save time in a bottle, the first thing that I'd like to do is to save every day till eternity passes away, just to spend them with you. If I could make days last forever, if words could make wishes come true, I'd save every day like a treasure, and then again I would spend them with you. But there never seems to be enough time to do the things you want to do once you find them.
Now that's how you do a superhero speedster scene. That's what I'm talking about.
Yeah, boy!
Well, hello, kiddies. It's your friendly neighborhood watchman with you again on another video. This one a continuation of my last video on Warner Brothers Discovery, DCEU's The Flash, starring Ezra Miller. And between recording that video and making this one, I have watched the movie.
What? What the fuck?
And yes, the special effects, the CGI, was found wanting. But more on that as we get into this article. The Flash director, Andy Muschietti, claims film's terrible CGI was intentional. Really, huh? Meant to put audiences, quote, in the perspective, end quote, of the Scarlet Speedster. Meant to put us in the perspective of watching PlayStation 2 level cutscenes? Is that the perspective the Flash sees along with the audience? That's what we're meant to believe? Alrighty then. But let's not get ahead of ourselves. Let us dive into this article. Written by Spencer Backley, as theatrical audiences and social media users have begun to experience the horrors of the Flash's awful CGI, face to uncanny valley face, director Andy Muschietti has claimed that the film's poor graphical quality was an intentional, creative choice meant to show audiences how the world looks from the Speed Force doused perspective of its titular hero. So from the Speed Force's perspective, the world looks like an obsolete home gaming console's video graphics. I must say that idea does not improve upon repeating. From an opening sequence featuring a number of infants that look as if they were ripped straight from Ally McBeal, to the PlayStation 2 level renders of Barry Allen's friends and family within the Speed Force, to the awful digital necromancy performed on both Christopher Reeve and George Reeves. The Flash stands as a prime example of how the execution of CGI can go horribly, horribly wrong. Damn, he nailed it. That scene with the babies to the beginning of the, oh, jeez. I mean, they're so outdated. You know, I could give you the benefit of the doubt. For some weird reason, why they look that way from the perspective of someone in the Speed Force. Okay? I mean, it's fiction. It doesn't exist, so you can make it whatever, right? That's the way it looks from the Speed Force? Fine. It's pretty damn lame. But I'm giving it to you, alright? Just for sake of argument. Later, I appreciate the cameos of the late Christopher Reeve and George Reeves. Okay? I love Christopher Reeve. I was a kid when the movie came out. He's Superman. He's my generation Superman. And I appreciate George Reeves because before the 1978 Superman film, kids my age used to watch the George Reeves 1950 Superman reruns, black and white. I think later they were shown in color too, if I'm not mistaken. So I grew up on George Reeves also. It's nice that he hasn't been forgotten. So why, if you're gonna, even though they're very short cameos, especially George Reeves, if you're gonna put him in there, do it right. You could have made him look a hell of a lot better. When we first see him and we're panning up towards him, and the closer we get, his face looks like like an old PlayStation. Forget PlayStation 2, old PlayStation cutscene. And Christopher Reeve, it reminded me of how bad the Princess Leia CGI was in the Star Wars film Rogue One. So, to reiterate, I appreciate the cameos, but if you're going to do it right or don't do it at all. While I appreciated the cameos of both George Reeves and Christopher Reeve, I was unhappy that Henry Cavill was conspicuous by his absence. After all, although brief, both Ben Affleck and Gal Gadot were back to reprise their roles. It's been said James Gunn is going to recast Superman, and Henry Cavill is a prime example of the Snyderverse, but so was Gal Gadot and Ben Affleck. So I just don't like how they did Henry. Not that he needs my help, or yours, but if you're going to put the other two actors in, you should have put him in. Spoiler alert, don't listen to this if you're going to watch it. But out of the blue, instead they bring in George Clooney. From the often mocked Joel Schumacher's Batman films from the 90s. I digress, okay? Rant over. Back to the article. For example, remember the wildly mocked floating head scene in Thor: Love and Thunder? Well, The Flash not only employs a similar technique to have Barry pop out of the Speed Force at various intervals throughout time, but they use it multiple times, each appearance looking worse than the last. Or take the film's climatic battle between Barry's ragtag Justice League and the invading Kryptonian forces of General Zod. Shot on a boring, completely flat horizon, everything looks completely fake and green screened in, a feeling which isn't helped by the fact that both Barrys seem to glide across the battlefield as they run rather than actually interact with it. However, despite its lackluster, to say the least, quality, the Flash director, Andy Muschietti, has claimed that the film's off-putting CGI was not a bug, but rather a feature. Asked during a recent interview by IO9's Jermaine Lucier whether or not this awkward aesthetic was what he envisioned for Warner Brothers Discovery's big box office bet, Muschietti confirmed that it, in fact, was. Quote, "The idea, of course, is we are in the perspective of the Flash," explained the director. "Everything is distorted in terms of lights and textures. We enter this water world, which is basically being in Barry's point of view. It was part of the design, so if it looks a little weird to you, that was intended." End quote. A water world, huh? Thank God we didn't see Aquaman's world through his eyes, or those films would have the same shitty effects. Muschietti's claim of stylization. It's hard to take his explanation seriously when Zack Snyder pulled off the same effect, replete with a CGI revival of Cyborg to far greater results in his cut of Justice League. Nailed it. So there went my benefit of the doubt. I takes it all back. Further, the end result of Muschietti's work, whether intentional or not, calls into question the report that Tom Cruise, the same man who takes practical effects so seriously that he leapt off a physical mountain for his upcoming Mission Impossible: Dead Reckoning Part 1, had called the Flash director to praise the film as, quote, "everything you want in a movie," end quote. Okay, The Flash is now in theaters. So folks, you know the drill. We have time. This was a short article. We could read some comments here. First one up is from the Judging Crow. Of course, it was an artistic choice and not the result of overworked animators. Press X to doubt. Next one up from Alan. I saw the film for free last night. Lucky you. And within minutes of the film, I regretted using my free pass. I wanted to walk out, but I stayed hoping it would get better. But it never did. The film wasn't woke, but it was awful. Well, it had some woke in it, but nothing like the Disney films, including the MCU. But overall, I agree with Alan. compared to those studios, it wasn't so much woke. It was just bad. I mean, as I said, it had its points that I enjoyed. I mean, I said in my prior video, I love Michael Keaton's Batman. That was the Batman of my youth. And it was just a blockbuster of a movie when it came out back in 1989. And I appreciate the cameos, although the bad CGI marred their screen time. And I haven't hidden the fact that I dislike Ezra Miller as the Flash. But he wasn't that bad. I gotta admit, he wasn't so annoying. When he was talking to himself, his alternate younger self, I found his younger self the focus of my annoyance. So, yeah, I guess I did still find him annoying. But yeah, back to what Alan was saying. The film wasn't woke, but it was awful. Plot holes galore, and the worst CGI I've ever seen. Even worse than a new Ant-Man. Keaton's Batman didn't belong in the film, and he wasn't at all like he was in Burton's films. I could go on, but it was easily the worst film I've seen this year, and maybe the worst film I've seen in years. He dislikes it worse than I do. Again, my guilty pleasures. I haven't seen Keaton as Batman in many, many years. I appreciated seeing him again as the Batman, and I won't apologize for it. Next comment by Variable. Who knew that the Flash saw the world as a mid-tier PlayStation 2 cutscene? Not me. But apparently the film's director, Andy Muschietti, did.
Oh, jeez. I've never heard of that.
Franklin means, spoiler, when Miller Flash returns to what he thinks is his reality, it turns out it's not the Snyderverse. It's the Clooneyverse. Aquaman is also in this final scene. So you could interpret this to mean that Miller Flash and the upcoming Aquaman sequel have been exiled to the Clooneyverse, and thus away from the upcoming DCU. An interesting hypothesis. You get a like, and you get a like, and you get a like, and everybody gets a like. Pat Gray replies, the leaked photos and footage of the scene started dropping last week. It's a nice theory, but depending on their plans going forward, they'll claim it's either an Easter egg or where they ended up. Bunny with a keyboard comments, quote, we meant to make it this bad, end quote. Okay, so I should expect the rest of your movies to follow suit? Glad to hear it, before I ever consider buying a ticket. Nano says, the quote, we meant to do that, end quote, excuse. Sorry, this isn't the 90s. We know better. Canadian Rebel says, he's lying, I can tell. And with that, folks, we've come to the end of another video. Destroy that like button. And comment and subscribe if you haven't already done so. And drop kick that notification bell so that you'll always be forewarned whenever I'm about ready to drop another video. And as always, stay safe and I bid you peace.
Time will
Thanks, kid.